Hello there, Salim Omar here from CPA Marketing Genius podcast. I am super excited. Got an amazing guest with us on a topic that's really very relevant for CPA firm owners, and it's LinkedIn. The name of the guest is Daniel Alfon. Daniel, welcome.
Thank you very much, Salim. It's a pleasure to be on the CPA Marketing Genius.
Awesome. Great. Daniel's the author of the book, Build a LinkedIn Profile for Business Success. He opened his LinkedIn account in early 2004. And so that's quite a number of years back. He's helped thousands of entrepreneurs and consultants grow their business. Daniel says LinkedIn is a very powerful tool that's mostly understood, and he has developed a simple method that can help leaders reach their objective without cold connecting or paying for a premium account or advertising. And so I'm ready to rock and roll, Daniel. And I'm gonna ask you my first question. If you can share with us a little bit about your backstory. How did you, you've been in LinkedIn for so many years. How did you get into it? What's been your journey like till today?
With pleasure. I took my first sales job, Salim, in 2006. And I was worried and scared because I didn't start very well. And I remember one day I was using LinkedIn, and LinkedIn showed me the name of a prospect. And back at the time, a third of my time was to just trying to find the name within the organization of the person I needed to reach out to. So LinkedIn essentially enabled me to slash my sales cycle at least by 30%. I beat my quota, and then I understood this is a tool I needed to play more with. Now it has over 800 million users, and since you started this show, hundreds of new users have joined LinkedIn, 2 people every second.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing. Now, what do you mean when you say treat your profile like a website, not a resume or not a CV?
Excellent. So if we think about a CPA firm, then the owner of that firm is not interested in finding a job as an employee. They're more interested in having new clients, in growing their business, in having larger accounting fees and taking pay. And in order to do that, I simply ask them to think of their website, of their profile as a website that needs to convert the ideal reader into reaching out to them and asking to meet or asking them for a proposal or something like that. So think about it. When we look at your profile, the first thing we see is the CPA and the best-selling author coach in your banner without even reading the profile itself. And the headline, that's the most powerful text element, doesn't mention your firm. It focuses on the customers. It says, I work with entrepreneurs and CPA firm owners to build profitable business. And Salim, no one is interested in us. Everyone is interested in how we can help them. So simply look at Salim Omar's profile and try to change it to work for you. Like you have uploaded a banner and like you have tweaked your headline, that's thinking as a website. And that's a simple thing for any CPA owner, any CPA firm to achieve. They don't just need to think about it in the right terms, if you'd like.
So the headline is important. How important is it to put a picture there? And what else is important on that page?
If we think of it as a website, then the above the fold is what we see. The profile photo needs to be professional. And ideally, most people want to see you with a headshot, smiling like your profile photo. The banner is also very important, and the headline, all 3 are key, because if those are not good, then most people will simply not scroll, they will bounce, they will go elsewhere, and we don't want them to do that. After they've read that, when you scroll, then there's the featured section. Your featured section, for example, leads to CPA Marketing Genius. So the question I would ask, or to Straight Talk CPAs, If you were able to, if we could add ideal prospects to this call, what action would you like them to perform? If we could make them visit your website, your LinkedIn profile, what action would you like them to perform?
And so that's a question you want me to answer?
Yes, please.
Sure. Probably read some of the content I've created. Would be good to get to know me more.
Excellent. And when they feel they know you well enough, what would you like them to do?
Probably go to the website and maybe do more. They can look me up some more, and then reach out and say, all right, how do we, what's the next step? I'm interested. I like what you're saying. I like what you're doing. How can we work together, or something of that sort?
Excellent. So let's rephrase it. The first question is, who's your ideal customer, or who's your ideal prospect? And the second question is, what action would you like those people to perform after they bump into your profile? And lastly, you ask, what have I provided them with the information that is likely to make them visit my website and then convert? Because conversion happens best outside of LinkedIn. When they go to CPA Marketing Genius, or when they go to Straight Talks, they're likelier to convert. So LinkedIn is a way for us to drive qualified leads into our website, because there we have some funnel. We have more control over the information we show them. And as much as I love LinkedIn, it's not as essential as our websites.
That's really very important, because when they get on our website, that's more than, as you say, into a fun. There's a funnel of sorts, right? There's a next step. There's an e-newsletter, a way for them to opt in if they want to, and so then you can have, you can build that relationship.
Excellent. Just like when people buy your book, then Amazon, if I go and order a Straight Talk about small business in New Jersey, you wouldn't know about it because Amazon would keep my details as a buyer. Right. But if I go to your website and I ordered anything from there, then you can nurture and we can have a communication, and maybe I will move further line and ask more about your services and actually hire you. So the same would apply for CPAs.
Yeah, makes sense. Now, what are the 5 myths about LinkedIn that you can share with us?
With pleasure. First, profile versus page. CPA firms sometimes think that their company page is important, and for SMBs and accounting firms, their individual profile is way important, Salim, than the company page. Because on LinkedIn, a company page is static, and most people do not follow company pages. The natural action is to connect as individuals. I look at your profile, I can send you an invitation. That's number one. Forget about the page until you have thousands of employees. It's not important on LinkedIn. The second thing is your connection strategy. What connection strategy do you have in place? So which strategy will work best for you? You can pick quality. That means you connect with people you know well, and you can gain referrals. Or you can aim for quantity and exposure. Either can work, but if we try to have both of them, we end up with very little of either. So you can pick quality and stay with quality all the way, or you can pick quantity and go for a large quantity all the way. If you're trying to aim for both, it's not very successful. Third important point is that our listeners don't have necessarily to pay for a premium LinkedIn account. They may usually need to invest time in order to see how the LinkedIn algorithm works and how the LinkedIn platform actually works. Once they understand the free platform, then maybe they need to consider the premium account. But if we don't know the free platform well enough, it doesn't make sense. We will not be able to leverage the premium facilities, if you'd like. Another point I would like to our listeners here to take into account is that content is way more important than advertising on LinkedIn. You can have organic content, and organic content is the gasoline that will make people discover you. And if you lead with content, that means that you have more inbound leads. People who said, you know what, I was listening to the episode you had about how to attract high quality clients, and I recognized it resonated with me. And now I'd like you to help us. I'd like you to help us grow our firm from this to that. And if you lead with content that your ideal prospect is struggling with, then when they are in the mood to buy, you're the only seller in town. There's much less competition. And the last point is the website versus CV we mentioned earlier. So I think it wraps it up.
Yeah, that's great. Now, I mean, I've heard people say that you want to get to 500 contacts as quickly as possible. Is that necessary? And earlier you mentioned quality over content, to focus more on the quality than the content, the quantity, right?
Right.
So how important is it for us to get to 500 for those folks that may be lesser than 500 connections?
And if you're listening and you have 499 connections and you'll hit the 500 limit, nothing will happen. If you don't know how to manage your relationships with 300 people, then you will not be able to do it with 3,000. I'm sorry. It's not let's speak about the metrics in general, okay? Because if we deal with accountants, then the metrics they need to care about are real life metrics. And what do I mean, Salim, by that? The metrics they need to focus on are not LinkedIn metrics, not the number of connections, nor the number of views or discussions or endorsements or any LinkedIn metrics. What they need to think about and focus is revenues, profits, new clients, and the real life metrics they already measure in real life. And we need to make the LinkedIn platform serve our real life objectives. And for the firm, it's revenues. At the end of the day, you don't go to sleep and you say, wow, I have 3,000 new connections. You say, I managed to earn another X, or I grew my firm from 1 million to 1.4 because you helped me understand how I can do it. So forget about the LinkedIn metrics. Think about it as a black box. All you need to measure is your real life metrics. If LinkedIn helps you do that, you're gold. If it doesn't, move elsewhere.
Yeah, good stuff. Now, when should you focus on sharing content on LinkedIn, and how often should you share information, content on the platform?
That's a great question. Let's understand that educational content is the best content that is likely to draw people to you. By educational content, I mean focusing on questions your ideal customers are asking themselves and trying to help them with evergreen content that makes them understand the problems they have and the first step they need to take in order to solve that. And if you've helped them make that first step, then they're likely to reach out to you and say, okay, now I understand that you have a lot more to offer than this. What would be the best package for us to start working with you? And if you only come to LinkedIn selling, then you're not likely to be very successful. Start by educating your customer and giving them advice as to move from the situation they are to the situation they desire. You don't have to take them the whole 9 yards. You can take them, one baby step. But if they realize this is a significant baby step in the direction they're headed, they're much likelier to say, I'd like to hear more about your services.
Yeah. So education, content is king, and being able to share the right content, the content that is going to be relevant for the reader, for the person on the site, is important. And then content that is delivered in a way that the other person gets it, right? So I kind of hear what you're saying there. Would you add anything to that?
I downloaded the three-step CPA practice growth plan before our discussion today, and I think it's a great example of content that is educational, gives me value as a reader, and it still makes me understand you have a lot more to offer other than what I've read. Okay, there's a whole system there of the championship team and client attraction and everything. It gives me a lot of ideas to think about, and still I understand that the person that has written this can help my firm grow much faster. I could probably do it alone, but it would take me a lot of time. And then I'm ready to hire you or to reach out to you and say, maybe we could have a discussion, maybe you could help my firm. So that kind of educational content works best on LinkedIn. Give value first, simply show people that you have more, take them through the first step and show them the second step. That will make them understand that you can be trusted for the long term in order to help them achieve their goals.
Yeah, makes sense. Now, what if you have a listener, Daniel, that says, I found an ideal prospect. They accepted my invitation to connect, but nothing happened. Why is that?
Listen, let's say we had coffee in New Jersey or Malaysia, and I would point at one person. I would tell you, Salim, this is my ideal prospect. Would you tell me go to LinkedIn, find that person, and send them an invitation to connect on LinkedIn, or would you suggest something else?
Something else.
Okay, and let's say that you actually know that my ideal prospect, okay? You have helped them in the past. What should be my first action now? Shouldn't I ask you whether you could make the introduction?
Totally.
Excellent. So forget about connections and get back to basics. If you find an ideal prospect and you share a mutual connection with that person and you connect it with people you know well, then leave LinkedIn. Salim, leave LinkedIn, speak with that mutual connection, ask them how they've been, mention the name of your ideal prospect, and ask a very simple question. Do you know that person well enough to introduce us? Would you feel comfortable making the introduction? In some cases, the person will say no. But when they say yes, you gain a meaningful discussion with that person. And what we're interested in at the end of the day is a meaningful discussion. A meaningful discussion is likelier to convert into a proposal or starting working with that person.
Yeah, that really makes a lot of sense. That's awesome. Now, you say that exposure is overrated on LinkedIn. Why is that? What could possibly be more important than exposure?
Let's say this. If I'm looking for someone to help my accounting or my practice, I know that by Googling, I will find probably tens or hundreds of companies who tell me we can help you. But if I speak with a friend of mine and he says, you need to work with CPA Marketing Genius and with Salim Omar because they've helped companies like you, that is more meaningful to me than the first top result I would find on Google. And whenever we run a search on LinkedIn, we'll find ourselves and we'll find hundreds of competitors. And what can be the X factor is the ability to leverage our own network in order to gain an introduction. And the problem with exposure, you're right, exposure is great. But most people think of exposure as having 3,000 connections. And I'm afraid most LinkedIn users do not log into LinkedIn that often. Maybe 1% will actually see what it is you share. So in order to have meaningful exposure, you need 30,000 connections. And if you have 3,000, then you've polluted your network. You no longer gain meaningful introductions, and you haven't gained enough exposure. So if you want exposure, go the whole way, go to 30,000. That will give you exposure. If you have 2,000, 5,000, it's not meaningful exposure. And on the other hand, you've no longer enable trust and referrals and word of mouth, and referrals in service-based businesses could be the best source of clients there is.
Yes. Wow, this is so good. Really appreciate everything you're sharing with us. I've got like a couple of minutes before we finish off. One more question, maybe two. Is there such a thing as a perfect introduction? Why is it affected by your connection strategy?
Excellent. If we go back to something we discussed earlier, then in my book, an ideal introduction happens outside of LinkedIn. LinkedIn has enabled us, Salim, to find the name of that prospect and to identify a mutual connection. And then what we could do is speak with that person outside of LinkedIn. The secret no one will tell you is that you need to leave LinkedIn at one point. And it's not natural, it's counterintuitive, because what you said is what most people assume. When I see a prospect, then I would hit connect. But then, like you said, often nothing happens. They may accept the invitation, but nothing will happen. So whenever you see someone who shares a mutual connection with you, and you know that person, if you hit connect, you basically bypass your network. Ask your network first, and maybe they will enable you to have a conversation with that person. And after you've started working with them and they're happy, then connect on LinkedIn. But the connection itself, you should have a process, either connection and then nurturing your connections, or real life, offline, networking and a meaningful conversation. And then at the end of the day, you have a connection. If you only hit connect, in many cases, like you said, nothing will happen. So have a system in place.
And that's a great segue to a question I have from a practical standpoint. For busy professionals, what do you find is the best way for a CPA owner, practice owner that is busy? They've got a lot of stuff happening. How do they find the time? Can this be stuff that can be delegated to somebody else? Or is it stuff that they need to do? And if they need to do it, how long? What's a practical way to get it done?
That's a great question. And I will simply ask this: what is the minimal amount of time that busy practice owner can dedicate to LinkedIn on a regular basis every week? Now, you can say 5 minutes, it's fine. But 5 minutes each week for a year, if you can do that, then within 5 minutes, I will say simply look at your notification, send 1 or 2 connection requests, accept 1 or 2, and move on. And what you could delegate are repetitive tasks. For example, if you have a blog post like you have, so the first time you share it and you show your PA or your virtual assistant or someone else how to do it, and the second time they do it and you watch and you make sure they do it well, and from the third time onwards, basically, they no longer need you. You can just see that what they've done is good. So repetitive tasks can be delegated to someone you work with that has more time, and your own time should be focused on things only you can call the shots. Like, what should I do this or should I do that? That is for you to do. And if you succeed in being consistent on LinkedIn and spending X amount of time a week for a number of months, you are likelier to see results from the platform. You don't need to spend 12 hours a day on LinkedIn. Only crazy people, myself included, do that. But if you can spend 5 minutes a week, make those 5 minutes count. If you can have 30 minutes a week, obviously you'll get more exposure, you'll get better revenues, you'll get more profits. Everything will work in the same way. But just think about the minimal amount of time that you can dedicate to LinkedIn consistently for at least a couple of months, and that should be your way forward.
Yeah, that's amazing. Awesome, good stuff. If listeners want to reach out to you, how can they do that? What's the best way for them to connect with you?
With pleasure. All they have to do is go to danielalfon.com, and they will be able to register to a free newsletter and read articles. And there's a giveaway there that will help them make their profile headline almost as great as yours.
That's awesome. DanielAlfond.com. We're going to have the URL at in the show notes. Folks, I highly encourage you. Daniel knows his stuff. You heard him firsthand. He was precise. He's been using LinkedIn since 2004, and so highly encourage you to reach him out, and the resources he's pointed us in this episode. Daniel, thank you so much. Greatly appreciate your time and the wisdom you've shared with us today.
Salim, thank you very much. The CPA Marketing Genius rocks. Thanks.
Thank you, man. Take care.